iPhone 14 Pro Max versus the iPhone 11. I'm going to get right to the point. If you are considering an iPhone 14 Pro Max and coming from an iPhone 11, just get the damn phone. It is a huge upgrade compared to the iPhone 11, and we're going to talk about some of those things today. First and foremost, let's talk about the screen on this iPhone 14 Pro Max. It is spectacular, and forget about the size difference between the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 14 Pro Max. I want to talk specifically about the refresh rate, which I think is 120 hertz on this phone compared to the iPhone 11, which I believe is only a 60 hertz panel. Now, in real world use, that means that as I'm just navigating through the phone, it looks so much better. It's so much smoother, so much nicer. It just works really, really well. The other part of this screen that I want to talk about has to do with the brightness. I don't know how many nits, again, on this channel, we're not super technical, but all I know is when I take this phone out into the world and look at it outside, I can now actually see the screen as opposed to on the iPhone 11 where it was a struggle. So, I mean, how many times you're out there, trying to look at something, an email message or something like that, and you're just squinting, you're trying to block, just trying to figure out what's going on with whatever it is that you're trying to look at on your phone, and you just can't see it. So that is a big, huge difference, and it's like a real world difference between the two, because a lot of times you just look at the specs, and the specs on paper make it look like this is so much better than that, but in reality I can share with you that the iPhone 14 Pro Max screen is significantly brighter and much better than the iPhone 11. Let's talk about the camera. So I am a camera enthusiast, if you will. So on this channel you'll actually see a bunch of videos talking about Fujifilm, Sony, Canon, Nikon, and the rest of them, but I haven't really spent a lot of time using my iPhone camera. I mean, of course I take little snapshots here and there, but I gotta tell you, with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, it has really changed my opinion of that because the cameras are so good. Now, first and foremost, with the iPhone 11, you only get the regular normal lens, which is the equivalent of like maybe a 28mm focal length, and you also get an ultra wide. You do not get a telephoto lens. On the iPhone 14 Pro Max, you do get that telephoto lens, and it is a fantastic lens. I find myself shooting more with that telephoto lens than any of the other lenses on this particular camera. It's good. It's really good. So it's nice having that functionality built in. When you pinch to zoom in the iPhone 11, you lose a lot of resolution, so those pictures become, in my opinion, really unusable. They're not great photos. In addition to that, you've got this night mode or something within this phone. I think it exists in the iPhone 11, but it was a really poor execution of that. The difference between the iPhone 11 and iPhone 14 Pro Max, 3 years makes a huge difference in terms of technology. And again, this is like real world solution. So I'll put a picture up here on the screen, and this is a picture that I took on my way to my daughter's soccer game the other night. It was a playoff game. They won, by the way. Woohoo! So we continue on. We got another game tonight. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. And I just took the picture. Normally, I would grab the picture and I'd be like, oh, this is just a throwaway picture. But I took this picture. I was like, look at the dynamic range in this photo. And this is a nighttime photo, very low light. You got the moon. You got reflections off the water there. It's just dynamite. Again, is it going to win any awards? Absolutely not. But for me, and the way I remember that scene, it's great. And it kind of set the stage for that particular evening. Lastly, talking about the camera, let's talk about the video specifications. Again, I don't know what frame rates are allowed in the different cameras, but all I know is that the video quality that comes out of this, the 4K video quality that comes out of the iPhone 14 Pro Max, is significantly better than what I got out of the iPhone 11. In fact, I'll throw up a couple of side by side here where you can see the difference when I was out vlogging and just holding the camera side by side. And you could see that the iPhone 14 Pro Max performs significantly better than the iPhone 11. I think part of it is probably maybe it's got a little bit bigger sensor in there, better technology. I don't know exactly what is allowing it to work as well as it is, but it really is giving terrific results right out of the box. So I'm really happy with the performance with the camera. If you are finding value in this video, I just kindly ask that you smash the like button and also click the subscribe button down below to be notified of future videos. Thanks. Back to the video. All right, next up is size. So this was really interesting to me because I haven't been a big proponent for any of the Max phones recently because I felt like they were just a little bit too big in my hand. They were just a little bit too wide, a little bit too tall, but this one really strikes a nice balance between being essentially the same width as the iPhone 11, and you can't really see it. Like when you put the two phones together, I've got them in a case here, so it's not really fair, but you can see that they're essentially the same width, and it's just a little bit taller. So I've never really had a problem with the phone being taller or longer. The issue has been being able to hold it within one hand and still operate the phone, which I can now do with the iPhone 14 Pro Max. It's a nice size. I have bigger hands, but it's still a very nice size for most people, and being able to grab this and operate it with one hand. Next, I want to talk about speed. So we already talked about the screen, how fast that is, but even just opening up the apps on the phone, it performs significantly better than the iPhone 11. And I also found, in terms of connection speeds, like being able to download stuff and upload stuff, it works significantly faster than the iPhone 11. So I'm sure there's some improvements to the connection. What they did, I have absolutely no idea, but it works, and it's a noticeable difference between the two. And then last up on our list here, which has been, I think, a little controversial out there. Some people love it. Some people are saying it's really, kind of a gimmick, but I find it incredibly useful, and that is the dynamic island. So the dynamic island, the great benefit of this is it gives you access to an app that you have running in the background right at the top of your fingertips. So if you have, let's say you're listening to a podcast, but you're checking your email, but then you want to get back into the podcast and maybe go over something else, instead of actually pulling the menu up and seeing the different apps that in that menu, but just going, swiping up from the bottom and then seeing your apps that way, you can just click on that. And then if you put your finger on it and hold on it, it will actually open up a little separate window on that screen that you're on. So you don't actually have to leave that screen, and then you can minimize it again. Or if you, double click on it or long press it, it will actually open up the app again. So it's really a nice shortcut to get into whatever app you have running in the background, as opposed to, again, scrolling up, finding the app, and then clicking on it to get into it. So that I found, in terms of just an efficiency workflow issue, it works really, really well. So those are my overall thoughts on the differences between the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the iPhone 11. Is it worth it? 100%. I think I got a little over $200. In fact, I got to send this off to Apple today to make sure that I'm still within the window where I can actually get the trade-in for this particular phone. But I think they offered me a little over $200 for this particular phone, and I paid, I don't know, $1,000, $1,100 for the new phone. But I don't get new phones all the time, and I'm sure if you're watching this video and you have an iPhone 11, you don't get phones very often either. So I think 3 years is probably the sweet spot where you can really see a big difference in performance between the two phones, which I certainly have. So if you're on the fence, whether you're considering an iPhone 11 versus an iPhone 14 Pro Max, my suggestion is to go ahead and do it. You will see a significant improvement in, like, all those things that I just said: performance, use, screen, all that stuff. So if those things are important to you, go for the upgrade. If they're not, and your iPhone 11 is working perfectly fine, then continue to use it. It should be good for another year or two. If you did enjoy this video, I just, again, kindly ask that you smash the like button and also click the subscribe button down below to be notified of future videos. Thanks for watching. Take care.